Hey guys, I got another study for you. Today is the 20th of April, 2021, still here. And I'm just spitting out all these videos. So this is why I'm looking in the same shirt, same spot, everything. I'm getting it all out. This is all given. So I'm just releasing it as he's telling me to. In this, we're going to talk about really a lot of what you need to find comfort in and how you need to switch your mind frame. Okay. And it's going to be really cool how God may reveal it. I think it's cool. But let's get started. As always, seek the Lord on everything. Everything I'm about to say, everything I'm about to share, let not it just be with you, but take it to God in your walk, in your relationship with Him to not just confirm it, but to expand upon it. Take it and He can explode anything. He can make a seed into another blossoming fruit. So the seeds that He may use me for, if you bring it to Him, He may create a whole forest of fruit for you to eat. You get the symbolism. So we're going to be in Jeremiah 1, and I'm going to start in verse 3. And in verse 3 it says, "It came also in the days of Joachim, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, unto the end of the 11th year of Zedekiah, the son of Josiah, king of Judah, unto the carrying away of Jerusalem captive in the 5th month." Unto the carrying away of Jerusalem captive in the 5th month. There's a reason why I repeated that twice. Because some people may read that and say, okay, cool, we got, a little depiction of where things are about to start. But God also said the end in that same phrase. He depicts the end already in verse 3 of what Jeremiah is about to talk about in his whole chapter. The reason why is he says, this is where the words of the Lord started and it came from in the duration of this type of time, in this reign, in this kingdom. But in the end it says, unto the carrying away of Jerusalem captive in the 5th month. Why did Jerusalem get taken captive? Because they didn't listen. God has sent a prophet, Jeremiah, and because they didn't listen, they were sent into captivity. We all understand that when there's a repentant nation, a nation that repents, there is freedom and a turnaround. There is a change. There is relenting of what God usually does. And there's so much repetitive captivities that happen, especially in the Old Testament, that you have to see, okay, why were they taken captive? Why were they taken captive? It all comes from disobedience. That's it. Because God is the true provider of freedom. Satan is the adversary of that, so he is captivity. This is where we're going to start. So, like I said, in verse 3, they didn't listen or they weren't led by their own will into God, so therefore they received the captivity. And this is not just captivity of a place of a prison. This is captivity of self. You can be captive in your own self by not listening and being obedient to God, because God only sets yourself free. That is His purpose. He comes to the sinner. He comes to the contrite, broken spirit to make something else out of it. You not listening, you're putting yourself captive in a prison of what you're not being for God. All right, so we're going to go to verse 5 and 6. In verse 5 it says, "Before I formed thee in the belly," and many of you guys know this verse, "before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee." Sanctified meaning setting apart, put away, made you in another territory. "Out of the womb I sanctified thee. I ordained thee a prophet unto the nations." All right, now this verse speaks volumes, in massive volumes. I'm going to cover what God has revealed to me. And I know that many of you have nuggets, a bunch of nuggets about this. And feel free to share in the comments section for others, okay, for other people as well. So in verse 5, I was shown that set yourself apart before coming out of the womb means there's a placement of you in the mother's womb. Setting yourself apart, that God knew you before you knew you, and that He had already sanctified you in the womb, that refers to that there was also a strategic positioning of why you were placed in that womb and what womb you were placed in. God has 7 billion people or more to choose to place a baby with purpose. So he's strategic. So don't think that your upbringing or whatever you went through was just a random thing you had to go through. God was strategic for a reason. He was placing you in that spot, in that mother, that specific mother, for a reason and a purpose that he had. Okay? His will is higher than ours, and it always is. This also includes not just your mother's womb, but the family and the location of that literally on the planet. Because we also understand that there is a reason why God sets apart in locations. Think about your own life. Understand and think about, why was I placed in that location, in that city, went to that school, went to this, started there? Why was I placed in that family who was doing this, who did that? There's an orchestration happening, and you have to acknowledge it. Don't acknowledge just the darkness and the negativity. There is plenty of God's will there for a reason. His fulfillment of that only happens in his time, and he works not as man think. We know this. But that's to set the basis of where I'm about to go with this, okay? Keep that in mind. In verse 6, it says, "Then said I, Ah, Lord God, behold, I cannot speak, for I am a child." This is Jeremiah speaking back to the Lord, calling him. Verse 7, "But the Lord said unto me, Say not, I am a child, for thou shalt go to all that I shall send thee, and whatsoever I command thee, thou shalt speak." Now, that seems perplexing when you're listening to this and hearing this from God, and you're like, how do you know I'm about to be that obedient? You understand? How do you know I'm about to be that on point with what you are about to do? It's a good question to ask, because it shows your limitations, and that's okay. But this is where it's different. It's where what God was revealing to me is that you were looking at your own state, your literally own state. And that God was showing me, as he was showing me this, it was a present state. You were looking at your present state, not the state that God created for you, which is an alpha and omega state of you. You got to look at it like that. You got to look at there's a beginning and end state of what God made of you. And that's how he made you. He didn't make you from a progressive, let's watch and see. He made you from a beginning and end finished state. It's finished. He said, before you're in your mother's womb, I knew you. That's a completion statement. We have to look at it through him. So in verse 7, where it says, "Say not that I'm a child, for thou shalt go to all that I shall send thee, and whatsoever I command thee, thou shalt speak." I was also being shown that God is calling you. It's not just he's calling you like, hey, come on this way, but he is stating you as already obedient. By this scripture, and Jeremiah was no different man than you see talking in the screen right now. Human. He's stating about you that you are obedient, you are useful, you are purposeful, you're reliable, you are faithful, and you are trustworthy. And the list keeps going on, okay? God is stating you as this from a beginning and end. He is giving you the already committed. This is where he's seeing you already. This is why he rejoices over you, even when you look like you're in a dark time. He rejoices over you no matter what. This is why he smiles at you when you seem like, oh man, God just saw this happen. He's still like, come here. You're still mine, and I know you, and I already have a plan for you, and it's fulfilled. Okay? So what God was also showing me is that, and including to all these details or adjectives you could say about yourself, like the faithful, trustworthy, reliable, God was showing me God is calling you another image of you that you can't make of yourself. That's all he's saying. When he's talking to Jeremiah, he's like, I'm just a child, I can't speak. God is calling you a different image. He's calling you an image that is beyond what you can see. But the image has to look like a full detailed image. This is what I'm trying to hit home with you, is that God is not looking at just a broad sense of you. He's looking at a full detailed image of you and saying, no, you're going to do this, this, and this, and this, and this, and you're going to go here and here and here and here. You're going to be like this. Full detailed. Full detailed. So what it comes to is that we need to have God as our first explanation of ourself, not even us. Because we see where the limit was, it was easy. We need God to be our first explanation of ourselves because he already sees it. It's like a duh moment in a way. So understand that. Use him as your first explanation, because if you don't, this is where the enemy comes in, because the enemy likes to work with unknown things. The enemy likes to work with uncertainty because he can put his own twist and his forked tongue in there and give you a good thing and a bad thing at the same time. God gives you fulfillment with a tongue that is not forked. In verse 8, it says, "Be not afraid of their faces, for I am with thee to deliver thee, saith the Lord. Then the Lord put forth his hand and touched my mouth. And the Lord said unto me, Behold, I have put my words in thy mouth." So verse 8 is that as God knows you, he's already declaring your victory. We know this, but he's already declaring what we can see as limitations in what we think will be a limitation to fulfillment. He's already sees that, but he's still declaring something else. This is where we have to walk in his explanation. And it's not by the present mistakes. You can't depict yourself by present mistakes. It doesn't work, because then you're always choosing a portion of yourself, not the full totality of what God made. And to go on, let's go to verse 10, 9, and 10 again. I'm going to speak on 9 and go to 10. It says, "Then the Lord put forth his hand and touched my mouth. And the Lord said unto me, Behold, I have put my words in thy mouth. See, I have this day set thee over the nations and over the kingdoms, to root out and to pull down and to destroy and to throw down, to build and to plant." Okay, so this is pretty much God also giving him his purpose. That the declarations that Jeremiah was going to say as the voice of the Lord, as a mouthpiece, as an instrument, was going to pull down, destroy, plant, and grow. Because it was going to be God's word spoken and they never go void. He was just a mouthpiece to speak it. So it was like an instrument to strum the vibrations into the reality to cause it to happen. Another way to look at it. What God was revealing to me, and it was like a vision I saw. It was quick, but it understand the interpretation I'm about to say. It was this. I understood that God will place you higher to conduct his purpose, but also I understood God will place you higher but away to conduct his purpose. God will do this. He will set you apart, and I know people got testimonies of the same thing. God will set you apart and use you for his purpose all the time. But he'll seem like he'll set you higher. Now, the reason why I say set you higher is because the way Jeremiah was used, he was set higher to be able to speak to the nations. Now, in this height, it wasn't like an actual levitation on physical ground, no. But it was a position where he could be heard by those who need to hear him. It was a position where kings, peasants, everybody in between would have to hear the word of Jeremiah. He was set apart in a higher position. Understand, when you're asking for God to put you in a higher position in him, it is for a purpose he has to use you at that position. It's a purpose. It's not just to say, okay, cool, I'm higher now. No, you had to be ready to say, okay, if I'm going to be put higher, I'm going to be used, or I'm going to be a mouthpiece to people who need to hear me, who may be below. Understand it's a positioning of use. It's not just a position to dwell in, okay? But to continue, the thing I saw a vision, and it was very quick, but it had interpretation with it. And please understand this interpretation is not fully negative, all right? I saw that there was this dark place away from the population. It was like I was looking at the land, and I saw where there was light was mainly the population of people. There was light there, okay? And what I saw, it was like God took somebody and placed them over here, okay? Over here was in a dark space, but it was higher. Not outer space, no, but just in a dark space in the left corner that was higher. Now, when I saw that, I was like, okay, that's interesting. And I sought the Lord, of course, and he gave me understanding of what he was saying. He was saying that when I set people apart and I set them higher, I also set them higher and apart in darkness. Now, this isn't just evil. And this is not anything what God told me it meant. What he was saying is that I have put them in a hidden place where they're not easily seen by the population in the light. But from that location in the darkness, the hidden space, they are able to be used as like a conduit to be conducted by God to speak to the population who is in the light place. So it's a hidden place. It's not darkness as evil. Just like God puts you in his quiver. Understand those who understand the quiver analogy where God has arrows in his quiver and he pulls them out and he shoots. You're not in a quiver in that black space just to be held. You're also there to be put away, but into the position that God has you for a purpose to speak. Isn't it interesting that many people who are used by God seem to be tucked away, you can never find them. Or they're tucked away in a space where it's like, man, you're in the right place to be used. Understand that was not them doing that. God has set them apart and placed them there to be used in that hidden dark space, the quiver, to shout out what God needs to say through them before the quiver comes out and the arrow comes out for the shooting to happen. This is what God is doing now. So understand, I'm following him and saying this. I believe maybe there's some people who need to hear this. Understand why you're positioned where you're at. Understand those who are operating in their calling and understand why it's so set apart. It's not for darkness, but it's for hidden and for the best way to be used. God is a purposeful God. Nothing is void with his words and nothing is void with his will. There's purpose to everything. So take that in as well. Let me see. One other thing I will say is when I saw this vision of this person just being taken, so it was such a distance. That was one thing I noticed in this vision. It was such a distance away from the population, the general public or the people that were in the light. The darkness, there was a big distance, God, a big, big distance. That was something else. Now, going into verse 11. In verse 11, it says, "Moreover, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Jeremiah, what seest thou? And I said, I see a rod of an almond tree. Then said the Lord unto me, Thou hast seen well. And I said, thou hast seen well, for I will hasten my words to perform it." All right. Now, in this, I did a little in-depth little research on why it was an almond tree and a rod coming out of it. So coming back to this, in Hebrew, and who he was talking to, Jeremiah, God, the almond tree was a symbolism. If you look at the word watch in Hebrew and the word almond in Hebrew, they look exactly the same. Literally, look it up. They look the same. Watch and almond look the same. Now, in doing more research, I found out the reason is because they are written the same in Hebrew, except for some of the markings are different than the markings in the word watch. Okay? The reason is because the first tree to bloom is an almond tree. That's the first tree. So what that means is that God is stating that, hey, the almond tree is the first tree to bloom. That means springtime is showing up. What he's saying is, if I'm putting this rod, and we know the rod refers to discipline of the Lord, if God is birthing a rod out of the almond tree, which also refers to watch, which is the first tree to come in the springtime, God is saying, be aware. Be aware. My discipline is coming out of the first blossomings of what the almond tree is. I am literally going to bestow my discipline, the beginning of spring, possibly, or a watch for it. Okay? It's a watch for it. This is what God is saying. I'm looking at my notes some more to make sure I got everything. So, this is how God speaks. This is why we got to do research. There's so much more to it. God is saying that, I don't know what year, I don't know what, but he's saying that the almond tree, why it's coming out, the rod coming out of that, is a purpose for you to be aware. There is a time where God is going to really bring it out. And when he says, I'm going to hasten it, that means he's going to quickly perform it. That means it's going to happen at a fast pace. Don't fully know when, how, or what, but this is something to be alert by, to understand when you start seeing things come about. So these are the things God wanted me to share. Little two-part, right? But understand who you are in what God sees. Find your explanation in God first, and not of yourself, and not of what negativity says. There's always something different. Look at your life situation and understand that there is still a purpose, and you were called and ordained to be reliable, useful. God sees you as it already. We have to see it. We have to believe it, and we have to move in it. But it's not alone. It's not alone. That's the key. You're not alone doing it. You're not supposed to be alone to be yourself. Well, thank you guys. I love y'all. Appreciate y'all looking and receiving all I have to say. Thank you for just all the support in the comments and the emails. Appreciate all of that. I'll see you on the next video. Have a good day.